I wanted you to just imagine for a second that you are walking home entirely alone late at night. The air is bitterly cold. The path you're on is completely deserted, and the silence around you is so unbelievably heavy that literally the only sound you hear is the rhythmic crunch of your own footsteps echoing in the dark. Now, up ahead, huddled right by the side of the road in the deep, inky shadows, you spot a figure. It's a stranger, and they appear to be crying, like deeply distressed, with their face completely buried in their hands. Naturally, your human empathy kicks in, right? So you approach, you ask them really softly if they need any help. And the stranger slowly stops crying. They turn their body toward you. They slowly lower their hands. Now think about this. What is the absolute most terrifying thing they could possibly show you in that exact moment? A weapon? Some kind of monstrous fanged snarl? Actually, no. Because the absolute deepest, most visceral terror you can experience comes not from what is there, but from what is completely, unnervingly missing.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today we are going to completely dissect and gut a legend that has haunted the Japanese imagination for literal centuries. We are unmasking the Noppera-bō, the legendary and truly terrifying faceless ghost. This is a spectral figure that, from behind, looks entirely, perfectly human. But when it turns around to face you, it reveals this eerily smooth, featureless void of flesh right where a face should be. We're talking no eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just an empty, blank expanse. It's one of those legends that just crawls right under your skin and stays there, because it taps into our most primal, inescapable psychological fears. So if you're a focused learner who wants to understand not just the what of the ghost story, but the deep psychological why behind one of folklore's most unsettling entities, well, you are in the exact right place. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's dive right into the cold, beating heart of this myth, with what is arguably the single most famous written account of this entity. It was captured by the legendary folklorist Lafcadio Hearn way back in his 1904 classic collection, Quite On. The story is simply titled Mujina, and let me tell you, it perfectly encapsulates the suffocating dread of the Noppera-bō. Hearn describes this man traveling really late at night along the dark Akasaka Road heading towards Edo, which is what we know today as modern-day Tokyo. The night is absolutely pitch black. And as he's walking, he comes across a solitary, weeping young woman who's crouched right by a dark moat on Kinokuni-zaka Hill. Now, fearing that she might just throw herself into the freezing water out of sheer despair, the man bravely approaches to console her. He speaks gently to her, he tries to offer comfort, he's basically begging her not to cry. But she doesn't answer him. The weeping just suddenly stops. Instead, she rises incredibly slowly, turns her back to him, and then she drags her hand right down across her face.
When she turns back around to look at him, her face is as smooth and featureless as an egg. Now, the man doesn't just get a little spooked, he is plunged into absolute mind-shattering panic. He screams at the top of his lungs and sprints away into the pitch-black night, running blindly up this seemingly endless hill, his lungs just burning until finally, he spots the warm, welcoming golden glow of a lantern way off in the distance. And it turns out it's a late-night street vendor selling soba noodles. Thank goodness, right? So the man collapses in a heap right at the vendor's feet, just gasping for air, frantically trying to explain the monstrous, faceless thing he just saw back by the dark moat. The vendor listens to him completely silently, keeping his back turned, just calmly chopping his noodles. Then, in this sudden, very deliberate motion, the vendor stops. He asks in this low, terrifying growl, "Was it anything like this that she showed you?" And the vendor turns around, stroking his own face, which instantly dissolves into that exact same horrific egg-like void. And in that precise, terrifying second, the vendor's lantern light suddenly snuffs out entirely, plunging the screaming man back into total, suffocating darkness.
Now, the structural genius of this story isn't just that it has a simple jump scare. No, folklorists actually have a highly specific term for the exact mechanism shown here. It's called Saido no Kai, which roughly translates to the recurring spooking motif, or essentially the double scare. And this, right here, is the true backbone, the terrifying heartbeat of the entire Noppera-bō legend. You see, the monster doesn't just frighten you once and let you run away. It waits. It actively waits until you think you've escaped the nightmare, until you finally found a safe haven, a warm light, a sympathetic human ear to listen to your story, and then it violently pulls the rug right out from under you. It violates the safety of the rescue itself. The psychological devastation of realizing that your savior, your safe harbor is actually the monster in disguise is just infinitely more paralyzing than that initial encounter out in the dark.
Section 1. Anatomy of the yokai. The faceless threat.
To truly understand the Noppera-bō, we have to kind of transition away from the visceral horror of the ghost story itself and move into a more academic dissection of its anatomy. We really need to look closely at its characteristics, and most importantly, how it actually operates in the physical world compared to the psychological one. Because the ultimate irony of the Noppera-bō is the stark, almost hilarious contrast between its visual appearance and its actual threat level. Visually, it is deeply terrifying. It presents this featureless smooth void, which is occasionally referred to in old texts as a nupperi or flat face. It looks utterly demonic, like a literal glitch in human reality. Yet physically, it is completely 100% harmless. Seriously, it never attacks you. It never bites, it doesn't scratch, hunt, or curse its victims in any way. It is merely a psychological prankster. Its entire existence is dedicated to one singular goal, which is intimidating and terrifying humans to the point of utter exhaustion. According to the folklore, it relies solely on the raw shock value to frighten those with weak hearts. The horror is entirely manufactured within the mind of the victim.
Section 2. Pranksters in disguise. Who is behind the blank face?
And that brings us to a really fascinating question. If these things don't want to eat us and they don't want to kill us, why exactly are they doing this? Well, we have to shift our focus to the actual culprits hiding behind the scare. Because as it turns out, the Noppera-bō is very rarely an independent, standalone spectral entity. Nope, it is almost always a mask. It's an elaborate illusion crafted by something else entirely. Ancient folklore manuscripts actually extensively document a whole array of creatures that possess this insatiable desire to toy with humanity. When an exhausted, terrified traveler reported seeing a Noppera-bō, traditional scholars and the wise village elders wouldn't just assume some ghost from the underworld had arrived. Instead, they would immediately start looking around for the usual, furry suspects, who are historically known for their magical shape-shifting abilities.
So, meet the true architects of the faceless terror. First we have the mujina, or the badger. Then there's the kitsune, which is the legendary magical fox. And finally, the tanuki, the raccoon dog. These guys are the master illusionists of Japanese myth. And these shapeshifters frequently use that smooth, featureless nupperi face as a temporary, high-impact disguise. But why this specific face? Well, think about the energy economy of magic. Conjuring an illusion of a totally blank canvas requires significantly less magical energy than trying to craft a highly detailed, specific human face with moving, blinking eyes and talking lips. Yet it yields the absolute maximum amount of sheer, unadulterated terror. They don't do it out of bloodlust or malice at all. They do it out of a highly mischievous desire to tease us, to humble overly arrogant humans, or frankly, simply to enjoy the chaotic, deeply amusing spectacle of a grown adult running away screaming and flailing into the night over absolutely nothing.
Section 3. Regional faceless tales, a nationwide phenomenon.
Because you have to realize, this wasn't just some isolated urban legend confined to the dark alleys of Tokyo. We have to look at the massive geographical spread of this thing. The Noppera-bō is truly a nationwide phenomenon, with that core motif of the double scare adapting perfectly to fit the local flavor and the specific geography of various Japanese provinces. Let's just rapidly recount a few of these incredibly rich local variations to see just how versatile this legend really is. Way up north in Omori, they call it the Zunbera-bō. The local story there goes that a man named Yohei, who was just obnoxiously boastful about his amazing singing voice, was walking a lonely mountain path. He hears someone singing his favorite song beautifully, so he approaches them to investigate, and the singer turns around, with absolutely no face, simply declaring, "Me." Yohei runs to a trusted friend's house in an absolute panic, only to get hit with that classic double scare when his friend turns around with a blank face too. Then, if we go down to the ancient capital of Kyoto, the legend serves a very different purpose. A lazy fisherman deliberately ignores his wife's frantic warnings to avoid the sacred imperial koi ponds near a dark cemetery at night. He goes anyway. He's warned by a hauntingly beautiful woman who wipes away her face to terrify him into leaving, and when he runs all the way home, his own wife brutally scolds him for his foolishness before wiping away her face as well. And then down in Kumamoto, the terror takes this incredibly unsettling form of the Jubako-bare. This is an old hag on a treacherous tea house slope who terrifies night travelers by revealing a face with no eyes, nose, or mouth, sending them fleeing straight down the mountain, right into the waiting arms of a second identical faceless hag at the bottom of the hill.
And I want you to consider just one more chilling, hyper-local tale, this time from Shiga Prefecture.
Over there, they speak in these hushed tones of Dote Urano Ochobo, which is a mysterious bob-haired girl waiting silently behind the earthen dike. If you make the mistake of taking the narrow, dangerous path through the thick bushes at night, and you happen to call out to her, she turns to display a perfectly smooth, fleshy visage. Now, this particular story perfectly illustrates the real functional utility of these folktales in ancient society. You see, they weren't just told around crackling fires purely for entertainment. They were heavily utilized as essential cautionary tales to keep vulnerable people, especially small children, away from desolate, dangerous paths, deep, treacherous water, and precarious slopes at night. Fear, as it turns out, is a highly effective community safety tool. It kept people alive.
Section 4. The Psychology of Fear. Why a blank face terrifies us.
So now we really need to dissect the deep psychological and cultural significance here. Why exactly is a face without eyes, a nose, or a mouth so universally deeply unsettling to us? Why does it chill us to the absolute bone in a way that a fanged roaring demon or a bloody vengeful ghost maybe just wouldn't? Well, when we look at the psychological roots of this terror, it all starts to make sense. From an evolutionary standpoint, as human beings, our entire social survival relies heavily on our ability to read faces. We desperately look for eyes to understand someone's intent and focus. We meticulously study mouths to gauge emotion and to predict behavior. The Noppera-bō comes in and completely strips this biological safety net away from us. It represents the ultimate fear of the unknown and the pure terror of being completely unreadable. There is no way to negotiate with this thing, there's no way to empathize with it, no way to predict what it's going to do next. Furthermore, it symbolizes the devastating loss of human identity and the coldness of existential anonymity. It forces us to confront that terrifying thought of losing who we fundamentally are, of being wiped entirely clean and becoming a blank slate. Culturally, it also serves as this sharp, unavoidable moral warning about the severe danger of judging entirely by appearances. Think about it. The creature almost always initially appears beautiful or vulnerable or familiar, intentionally drawing the sympathetic victim in before violently revealing that the entire surface was a complete manufactured lie.
Section 5. A modern urban legend. From rural roads to crowded subways.
Now, you might naturally think that a folk legend born on lonely, dirt, rural roads and ancient, foggy mountain passes would just quietly fade away with the invention of bright electric streetlights, smartphones, and heavily populated modern cities, right? But you would be entirely wrong. The isolation of a dark rural road has simply been replaced by the profound, crushing isolation of a crowded modern city. Modern-day sightings of the Noppera-bō very often occur in places like Tokyo's labyrinthine, fluorescent-lit subway stations or on heavily trafficked but totally anonymous streets. People report seeing a figure, and they casually assume it's just an everyday commuter staring down at the glowing screen of their phone or hiding behind a popped collar. But when the person finally looks up, that chilling moment of revelation hits with the exact same force it did way back in 1904. There is no face. And honestly, this modern adaptation of the myth is arguably even scarier. It directly amplifies our modern fear of profound urban alienation, the fear of losing oneself entirely in an endless sea of faceless, anonymous strangers. It just proves that this particular yokai has evolved perfectly to exploit our very contemporary 21st century anxieties.
And tracing this evolution historically reveals an incredible, resilient journey across centuries of Japanese culture. Back in the 18th century, we see the early rural myths formalized and recorded in historic texts like Ugetsu Monogatari. Then leaping forward to 1904, we have Lafcadio Hearn cementing the legend globally, basically capturing it in amber with his literary classic Kwaidan. By 1964, the legendary director Masaki Kobayashi creates a visually stunning, deeply unsettling adaptation of the Noppera-bō in his globally acclaimed Oscar-nominated anthology film, bringing that horrifying blank face powerfully to the silver screen for everyone to see. And today, the legend doesn't just survive, it thrives. It pulses through both ongoing whispered urban subway sightings and massive widespread appearances in modern digital media.
I mean, today, the sheer scale of the legend's footprint in pop culture is absolutely massive. The most famous example, known literally all over the globe, is of course Studio Ghibli's breathtaking masterpiece, Spirited Away. It features the unforgettable character Kawanashi, or No-Face, who perfectly and honestly tragically embodies the loneliness, the desperation, and the consuming, greedy nature of a completely lost identity. We also see the myth deployed in the hit anime Inuyasha, where the creature uses the stolen face of a beloved mother to manipulate and torture a character's emotions. It appears as an eerie, totally unforgettable visual effect in the surreal indie video game Uni Nikki. It has even remarkably crossed over into Western children's media, with the ghost character Kiyomi Hantali in the Monster High franchise, and it remains a foundational, terrifying horror element in mature games like The Black Heart and avant-garde anime like Mononoke. So the Noppera-bō isn't just some dusty relic of the past. It is actively, powerfully resonating with completely new generations all over the globe, shape-shifting to fit whatever medium it happens to inhabit.
Which finally brings us to our last, deeply unsettling thought to end this explainer. When the lights finally go out and we are left completely alone with the heavy silence and the legend of the Noppera-bō, we really have to honestly ask ourselves something. Are we truly afraid of a supernatural shape-shifting badger playing an elaborate prank on us in the dark? Or, in our rapidly moving, highly disconnected, painfully anonymous modern world, are we actually terrified of something far more real? Are we terrified that we are slowly becoming just another faceless stranger in the massive crowd, quietly losing our distinct identity, piece by piece, until there is absolutely nothing left at all? I'm going to leave you to ponder that the next time you're walking alone and someone turns to look at you on a dark street.